We have a candidate for tax assessor collector. I think he'll put a chicken in every pot. We'll see. Mr. Berlanga.
First of all, how many of you have never met me? Good. So I'm getting some new voters today. At least I hope so at the end of this presentation. By way of introduction, my name is Michael Berlanga, and I'll attempt to run through a seminar that changed my life in June of this year. And all it was just an effort to give more exposure to my candidacy for tax assessor collector. After listening to Mike Varial do the same thing at Fox Tech in May, I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. Diego Bernal and Senator Menendez were having a town hall on how to protest your property taxes about 3 or 4 days before the deadline at Fox Tech. Now, I'm also, in full disclosure, an officer in the Republican Club of Bexar County. We meet here, and we're challenged, right? Because nobody thinks that they want to go south of Hildebrand. Y'all are courageous. You came this far south. But many of the conservatives don't seem to want to travel that far. So I understand what it's like to not get a good crowd that's this slow. So guess what? I said, you know what? Mr. Varial's no master's in tax. He doesn't have any background. He's a former mayoral candidate. Who's he as compared to my background? I'm a CPA. I've got a master's degree in tax. I've been protesting income taxes on behalf of people who pay me for the privilege of allowing me my privilege to represent them from the Internal Revenue Service for over 30 years. I may look young. I'll give you a little background. I was born on the same day as the Tea Party, the original one, not the political one, December the 16th. So maybe it's karma, maybe it's God's humor. But at the age of 55, or 56 last December 15th, I declared my candidacy and realized that my father had never lived past 55. He died when I was 14. So I've been in a hurry for some time. Because, you know, when you die of a stroke and you don't have the privilege of watching somebody, plan a death, it's pretty traumatic. And as a fifth of 7, I can tell you that I was inspired to think, wow, that's the good news, I've outlived my father. And the bad news, for some of you that think you're older, is my mother's 97, and she only has a hearing aid, and she's as healthy as the best of you in this room. So I've got 41 more years of this nonsense of paying property taxes, and suggesting, because of my Hispanic heritage, that I can say mi casa, su casa. Mi casa no es mi casa, because I'm renting it from the government. But I don't have to tell you that. You wouldn't be here if you didn't already realize that. But the significance of that background is that I got out of high school in 3 years from Central Catholic. I went to St. Mary's University and got out of there in 3 years. And by the time I was 22, I had my master's degree in tax. Now, why that means something, or should mean something to you, is that this is not my first rodeo in understanding a tax code. But it wasn't been my life's calling to deal with the property tax code. I have enough business planning and dealing with what I call suicidals and homicidals. I'm not a social worker, but if you ever got a letter from the IRS, I can tell you that's the first instinct. You either want to shoot them or you want to shoot yourself, right? And so that's the nature of the clients I deal with. I put my cards on your right. You've got hopefully 2 cards. You've got a green card, not because I'm an immigrant, I'm the son of an immigrant, but you've also got my red, white, and blue card. Why is that? Because I'm running for an office. Why is it red, white, and blue? Because even though I might look like Donald Trump if I put this on, taxes are not discriminatory. Either way. Stop tax abuse has been the theme of this presentation as long as I've been running for office since last December. But I won the primary in the Republican Party in spite of 2 candidates, one of which included a former employee of Bexar County Tax Assessor's Office. And I won it with 65% of the vote. Wonderful. Now what do? So I went to listen to Mr. Varial and realized he wasn't giving any accurate information about who's responsible. And he doesn't do this for a living. He wasn't offering to do it for a living. Certainly he's bringing attention to himself. So we put on this seminar, and we said, you know, with Constable Bodovich getting the word out, who's going to show up? In 3 days, we had over 340 people register. Now, I could have planned a wedding, offered food, and I promise you, I would never have gotten 300 people to attend. At the Republican County headquarters, I had to get 180 people in, get them out, and get them in again. So, I'm going to throw that out to you. Whether I'm the tax assessor collector, and allegedly, and I'm going to say that, this may divide some of us, allegedly have nothing to do with the valuation process, and I'm going to dispute that representation, then why is the tax assessor collector's office not holding seminars about how to protest your property taxes, right? There's no conflict. He has nothing to do with valuations. Why aren't we teaching people how to protest? Why did 95,000 people protest their property taxes this year? A record. You have to ask yourself this. The best thing he's done for my campaign is to send out the tax bills, which he deliberately sent out late, and I know that because I talked to the people in customer support services in their homes 2 nights ago. So, what do we want to do? As HTA, or in conjunction with me, you can either, quote, use that green card, you can pay me, or you can use the red, white, and blue card, you can vote for me. I think that's a pretty fair deal. And I can tell you which one's cheaper. And now that what I've learned today, don't do it Monday. Make sure you do it on November 8th. So back to my credentials. CPA, master's degree in tax, licensed real estate broker, suicidals, homicidals, and dreamers. I've got all extremes. Those are my clients. And so everybody in between, most importantly, the air quality in this room is terrible, and that's not because we're here, but it's terrible when I'm here for the Republican Club, so bear with me. I don't know what I'm allergic to. I was on the board for the Republican Club of Bexar County, and I'm very sensitive to these issues of regulation without representation. I ran against, I'm sorry, you're going to just put it down. This is too important, so just put it down. You and I are friends, just put it down. I'm going to act like I have cancer, and hopefully, Bob, you'll bear with me.
Well, we have the room till noon, so we
okay.
have more speakers.
Okay, well, then we're going to go through this real quickly,
okay,
as best as we can. It's real simple. Jesus Christ said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. He was the original tax planner. He took a drachma out of the mouth of the fish and he said, give that to Caesar. Caesar's dead. They haven't amended the Bible. It doesn't include Bexar County. It doesn't include any taxing authority. So I'm very passionate about this. Christian Chamber made me the president when I asked them to let me off the board, because I didn't want the politics to affect the good work of the chamber. So the chamber said, no, we've been praying, and I said, I don't know what God you're praying to. But I represent 2 different orientations. I want to grow the kingdom, so by growing people's businesses without conflicting with their worship, and I want to minimize their taxes so they can use, the 2 greatest commandments Jesus Christ gave us: love God with all your heart, love one another, to use their free will, using their churches and their communities to do the 3 things that we were told to do: feed the hungry, heal the sick, care for the weakest among us. I'm not going away whether I'm elected or not. The message hasn't changed since Jesus walked the earth. But the reality is the property tax code in Texas is a substitute for the Internal Revenue Code for the federal government. Can we not agree on that? So when everybody says, oh, we're so much better, I'm sure there's some transplants from, my favorite transplant is my favorite journalist, Kenrick Ward. When we come to Texas, it was because we're better than those other 42 states like California that have an income tax. No, that's not good enough. Whereas of the 8 non-income tax states, we are at the highest property tax burden, which means we're 44th in the nation in home ownership. Which is why more families can't get into homes, which is why we have an instability in our communities. So what are we going to do about it? I can go on for a while, but apparently we've got a limited amount of time, and I'm going to tell you this much. This is what you need to keep in mind. We don't need you electing a tax assessor collector. He sits on a board of appraisals for the Bear Appraisal District Board of Directors. He says he has no vote, then why sit in the 6-person board? The only other people on it are the county commissioner Chico Rodriguez, city councilman Robert Trevino, 3 other people representing school districts. You want to talk about taxation without representation, then I'll tell you, we have taxation without representation, not just when it comes to these utilities, but even something more obvious. We have not talked to the legislature about changing the generational ignorance that nobody in here is under the age of what? What would be the average age? My eyes tell me 60 years old, on average. No one's under that age. Yet how many of you have any children in school? How many of you are paying school taxes for properties you can't use? We can't convene in a school to have this event. But what we can say is that from 18 to 35, you don't have, we have a whole group of voters who say, I don't pay taxes, I rent. No, you pay taxes for the landlord. Why can't we make the state law to require disclosure of the property taxes being paid by those people to them so they could become as excited about this as y'all are? Why is it from 18 to 35 to 55 you're paying into mortgages where you have no authority to tell the lender when you want them to pay your taxes? These are not fiscal bills. They do not require a dollar from the legislature to make us more aware. So I've had the privilege of listening to voter fraud. I've worked in the legislature. I agree with Dr. Presley. But if you want someone that's going to have tax in their name so that you can use my office to be an advocate for change and to be overpaid to oversee 330 people who won't miss a beat in getting their bill out, but for 4 years can share with you the same passion you have for challenging the legislature, then I'm respectfully asking for your vote. I can't get through the presentation because apparently we didn't allow for enough time. But make no mistake, if you're going to sit in a room and say, I'm the tax assessor collector, and say, I have nothing to do with the appraisal process, but the Bear Appraisal District Board of Directors website says, these are the 6 people. There are 2 charges. Hire the chief appraiser, set a budget, and the chief appraiser says that not a man on the moon nor any man or woman is going to get any attention from the legislature. And Mary Kiki said, the system is broken. And Bank of America building was sold for $105 million just a year and a half ago, and it was taxed at $57 million. $50 million left the tax rolls. No accountability. I'll take questions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think you're the first person that ever got to this issue about how Texas has so much property tax, and I understand the whole income tax in other states, but my aunt, who is living on Social Security, and whatever the family can help, she can stay in her home because she has 0 property tax because she's on Social Security. And there isn't anybody in Texas, that are very few people, elderly, that are in that position, and we know a lot of people don't have savings, and if they're living on Social Security, they can stay in their homes. I think it's a real problem. I think it looks terrible on Texas, and I like something that Bob did years ago. He gave me some signs that said, vote no bonds. And I said, but Bob, don't we want to put what bond election? He said, no, it's all debt, vote no bonds, and I put it out every year. But anyway, I just want people to look at other states. If you lived in another state, you could probably stay in your home as after you are up there in years. But in Texas, it would be very difficult with all the property.
The system is immoral, period. It's immoral. It's not truthful. It's not transparent. This is not a consumption tax where you pay the tax at the point of the transaction and the next day you don't get taxed more. This is a travesty for the elderly. As I said before at the outset about my mother's age, I'm 56. I'm going to outlive her. This is immoral. This is not, we talk about truth in taxation. We don't want to offend those who don't want to reference the Bible. But the reality is, we are not holding Donna Campbell, we're not holding Jose Menendez, we're not holding any of these people accountable to. You tell me when anybody got up here and said, this is my proposal for tax reform and relief. Not a single one. Why? Because the incumbency that is gerrymandered the process, and I worked in the legislature the last cycle when they did redistricting. It was all about predicting the incumbents. So I'm not here to trash any of those people. I'm here to ask you if you can get me elected or to work with me somehow to say, every cycle, before we get to the general election, what are you going to do to bring us reform and relief? I'm looking for an answer, because this, we're all passionate, but if I can get 340 people to show up for a property tax protest seminar in June, then I'm going to work with you to multiply this audience. Because if we don't multiply it, then we can't hold Dan Patrick accountable, and he'll play it off Joe Strauss. We can't hold Joe Strauss accountable. But Senator Betancourt's the only state senator who was a property tax assessor collector. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I just wish, our meetings could be longer, but they can't. Oh, you have some signs back there?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, I've got signs, and keep in your prayers.
Okay.